Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our last meeting, Planning Commission meeting of the year, December 11th, 2025. At this time, I'd like to call our Planning Commission meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Dana Camp,
Here.
Narnette Reese, Vanessa Eccles. Here. Jennifer Lovern.
Here.
Joseph Astrup, Phil Chancellor.
Here.
Jennifer Stevens.
Here.
Oscar Mosley.
Here.
Walker Davis.
Here.
Before we start, I'd like to give a brief overview of the process for the public meeting of the Auburn City Planning Commission. The commission will be presented with agenda items by the city planning staff. The representative for the agenda item will then have the opportunity to make comments and/or answer specific questions from the commission. I will then open a public hearing as appropriate, and this will be the opportunity for you to address the commission about the agenda item at hand. We want everyone to be heard. I ask that you keep your time to talk to 5 minutes, and please keep your comments relevant to the case at hand. After everyone has spoken, I will close the public hearing. The representative and staff will then have an opportunity to answer any questions and respond to issues brought up during the hearing. Then I will open the floor to the commissioners for discussion, motions, and a vote. The commission will vote based on state and local laws, the city's comprehensive Plan 2030, and for the general good of the community. Having summarized the basics of the Planning Commission hearing and voting process, I would also like to summarize our role and responsibility related to the approval of subdivision plats. By Alabama statute, a municipal planning commission such as ours is the final approval authority of the subdivision plats. With regards to subdivision plats, the commission acts as an administrative body and is bound by the limitations contained in state laws, the city zoning ordinance, and the subdivision regulations previously adopted by the commission. While public hearings are required, most plans, we welcome any and all public comments concerning these items. Please understand the Commission's authority is strictly limited to confirming that the plat meets or exceeds specific requirements codified in laws and regulations previously described. I ask that if you intend to speak during any public hearing this evening, please sign in with your name and address for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Finally, I would like to make a point for the public in attendance. As you know, the Planning Commission is an advisory body for the City Council, except in the case of subdivision decisions. All other decisions will be made by the City Council after consideration of the Planning Commission's position. Thank you. Okay, with that, Mr. Cotton, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, thank you. So there are quite a number of changes from, I guess, Monday's meeting to now. We've had several issues come up, so I guess I'll give a brief overview, and then I think we have a visual to kind of illustrate some of the other points that I want to make on some of these. So regarding Pyramid Hill, so all the Pyramid Hill items, so that is on the original agenda. That's item 2, item 3, item 4. And that is also item 11, item 12, and item 13. All those items are coming off the agenda, and there is the final item that is the conditional use, item 24, that is Gold Hill Village and Gardens. That's coming off. So item 24, the Gold Hill, that was at the applicant's behest. They requested that. And then if we just want to go to the first slide. So the first one on the Pyramid Hill, 1 and 2, just due to Alabama code, there's state law that just kind of that talks about adjoining municipalities. And I guess you want to go to the next one. Adjoining municipalities, police jurisdictions, and having overlap. Pretty much just the city's position, and I guess kind of what the Code of Alabama says is that if there's two municipalities that have overlapping police jurisdictions for land that is in the county, the city can only annex what is equidistant to their city limits. Gets very legal. A lot of words that once you try to put them on a map don't really make a lot of sense. As you guys see, the line isn't straight, it's kind of jagged, but it's because of the interpretation of this, kind of how we applied it. And so with that, the city, there isn't legal confidence that the city would be eligible to even make a pre-zoning designation on this property, because we technically do not have authority to annex it. So we do not have authority to make any other uses decisions around it. And so that is something that we informed the owner and the developer that they're going to have to get City of Opelika's permission to, I guess they'll have to, state law says that they need a resolution from the other municipality approving that annexation, that they can annex their property in its entirety into the other municipality. And so until we get that, we will not be entertaining any applications on Perryman Hill. And so there are other properties in town that will affect, not in this general area, but in other places as well, where there's overlapping police jurisdiction. But that's the reason why that Perryman Hill was taken off the agenda.
Okay.
All right.
So we don't have to.
Nope.
It's just.
Nope.
Okay. All right. Good. Anything else?
No, I think, and so there's another item where the applicant requested specifically that it gets tabled, and so that's that was the Cox Road annexation, but we'll get to that, and so we can just table it when it comes up, since that one's a new business.
Okay. That's on the consent agenda. Do we
Yeah.
need to pull that off?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, we'll need to be pulled off, but I think first we have old business first. So.
Yes, okay. Right. Citizens communication is first. All right, now we will have citizens communication. This is where the citizens can come and speak to us about anything they wish to speak to us about that is not on tonight's agenda. So if you'd like to come up, please do, and before you leave, after you have spoken, please sign in on this sheet up here on the front desk. So would anyone like to speak before the Planning Commission now? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move to old business. So, old business, conditional use, Auburn Flex Works.
Yep. And so this one was tabled to a date certain for the December meeting, provided that the applicant provide a traffic study to speak to some of the concerns that y'all had. They did provide the traffic study, but they didn't provide it in time for staff to review it. And so it needs to be tabled until the January meeting to provide engineering time to review the traffic study.
Okay, so for Auburn Flex Works, I'm going to need a motion and a second to table to date certain.
Well, I'll make a motion to delay.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Postpone it to instead of
Postpone.
tabling. Yeah. Just postpone it. I'm sorry.
All right, I will make a motion to postpone Auburn Flex Works to a date certain of January 8th, 2026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, now we're going to move to the consent agenda, and Cox Road, we need to take that up first, correct? Cox Road annexation needs to be pulled off, and so we've got to vote on that first.
So you'll need a motion. Someone need a motion to take it
I
off.
need a
the consent agenda.
motion to pull off Cox Road subdivision annexation off of the consent.
I make a motion to take off AX 2025-015, Cox Road subdivision from the consent agenda. Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so let's look at the Cox Road.
Yeah, and so pretty much this Cox Road annexation follows the pre-zoning that you guys saw, that you guys denied. So since it's a pre-zoning request, pre-zones do not have to be immediately annexed, and so it allows the applicant to get a zoning decision prior to them committing to annex it into the city, and the annexation can lag by 6 months. And so the applicant requested that they just have this postponed till January. That way they can get it. They're going to get a decision in the coming, I think, of the next meeting from the council, just kind of regarding pre-zoning. So that's why they wanted to postpone it.
Okay. Then I'm going to need a motion for Cox Road to be postponed.
Motion to postpone Cox Road subdivision annexation to a date certain of January 8th.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, then let's do the rest of the consent agenda. We have the approval of the minutes for the packet meeting November 10th, 2025, and the regular meeting on November 13th, 2025. I need a motion and a
Move
second.
to approve this consent agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, so now we're ready for new business. First is pre-zoning for the Foundry CDD.
All right, just before the planners come up and kind of walk through each of these cases, since there are several cases associated with it. So there's 2 pre-zonings, things to rezone, and then there's also a couple annexations with it, in addition to the PUD case. So I'm just going to give an overview of the PUD case, and then we'll kind of talk about it. So for everybody in the audience, earlier this year we approved a planned unit development district. It was created to provide maximum flexibility at different places in town. All the zoning districts were eligible for the zoning designation, except for neighborhood conservation districts and rural. And so that is the reason that you guys will be seeing some of those annexations and the request to rezone. You need to rezone to something and then ask for the PUD. And so that's why you guys are seeing the rezone to CDD. So pretty much the corner at Shug and North College was always kind of envisioned to be a mixed-use master development, pretty much. And in the past, I think 2018 was when the last time there was a big PDD here that was approved that did include office space across from Cary Creek on North College. And so this is no surprise to the city, just kind of from the residential component to the office component, also to the 275,000 square feet of commercial. That was always kind of envisioned on this property. And also there's a very big backbone of the Saugahatchee Creek Trail, kind of the Greenway bike path that kind of goes through that area as well. And so I think always kind of from the get-go, the applicant was always curious about a PUD from the topography, the different offerings of the site and the different things that he wanted to do with it. He was one of the main proponents, just kind of asking about the PUD, wanted to talk about it, wanted to know what was possible, what could be done. And so this was always probably going to be a PDD of some sort. There was always going to be mixed use here, and I think that's what we wanted. And so the reason for that, this is kind of a part of a larger ambition for the city, an initiative for the city of identifying hard corners and maintaining them for commercial uses. And so when I say hard corner, think highly trafficked intersections similar to Opelika Road, EUD, I guess other places, as this is more urban, but College and Gay Street. But even when you get down to EUD and South College, those are some of the hard corners. Looking at different places like Shelton Mill and EUD, Donahue and Shug, these are all hard corners where the primary use needs to be commercial, just kind of from the city's perspective. And so in some places in town, one of the longstanding zoning districts that we have that has made this difficult has been the comprehensive development district of CDD, just kind of having single family housing being by use, right? And so it's like I said, the long ambition has been to preserve these hard corners for commercial, but also to provide these amenities and people who live on these parts of town. And so I think over the last couple of years, there's been a really strong push to get these commercial amenities up here. I've identified different projects like the neighborhood market at Walmart, different projects at this hard corner with the Cary Creek Publix, but then also looking at other places where there could be grocery stores and all those other different things. And so this project really does fold in very well with that, kind of dovetails with that. And I just wanted to give a brief overview of kind of how we got here with the PUD, kind of what the future land use was for that, what the intention was, and I guess kind of how this speaks to that on a larger scale before you guys see the independent stuff. And so from a unit count, I guess it was 2425, so 2,425 units across 280 acres. Roughly about 140 acres of preservation open space. I don't have it in miles, but portions of, like I said, the larger backbone of the Saugahatchee Greenway bike path, just kind of north. That's on our bike plan. That's on our greenways and green space master plan. And then, like I said, also the offering of the commercial, and then the construction of a major street that would go, I guess technically it'd be called Yarborough Boulevard since it's on the west side of North College Street. But I just want to provide you guys an overview, and that way you guys kind of had an understanding of why the pre-zonings and the rezonings were coming up, and then we were going to talk about the Foundry, the actual PUD part. I'll get into the nuts and bolts of it, and we can kind of talk about the details of where they got relief, what the exchanges are, and any other questions that y'all may have.
Okay. Would the applicant like to speak at this time?
Oh, well, I guess if you guys just let the planners run through the,
Okay.
just let the planners run through the
I need
cases.
to ask a question first, though.
Okay.
Yep.
Can I ask a question
Yep.
about process?
Yep.
So, we have a pre-zoning, and then we have a rezoning. Don't we have to have the annexation before we rezone?
No. So if you, can you go to the, can you go to the prox map? I'll show you what this is. Okay, so on this one's the pre-zoning. So you see how everything in the in white essentially says outside city limits. And so part of this property, it's probably about half of it in total acreage, is currently outside of the city limits. And so since that is not annexed, it needs to be pre-zoned. They are requesting that it is pre-zoned.
Separate piece.
Correct. And so yeah. And so there are multiple pieces in this. I think there's the Mueller piece, Owens piece, and the Auburn Place piece. Part of it's already in the city, and part of it isn't. So that's why there's the split of the pre-zoning and the rezoner.
That makes sense now. All right, thanks.
There you go. Yeah. So if you guys want to come up and present.
Good evening. Okay, so our first case regarding the Foundry PDD is rezoning or pre-zoning. This is a pre-zoning request from the Foresight Group LLC on behalf of Jolly Development Incorporated to pre-zone approximately 126.97 acres to CDD or Comprehensive Development District. The subject property is located at the northwest corner of the North College Street and Shook Jordan Loop. And the zoning would be rural pending annexation of AX 2025, 17, and 18. So as you can see here, the prox map shows 126 acres. Now, we do have, of course, the already annexed rural area right here. So this is why we're looking at the pre-zoning only, as discussed earlier.
Right.
And kind of just on the exhibit, this is the overall Foundry master plan. You can see a wide variety of commercial, office, multi-family apartments, but this is kind of just strictly looking at the pre-zoning to CDD. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions y'all may have.
Commissioners, do you have any questions right now? Okay. Would the applicant like to speak first? Okay. All right, this requires a public hearing. If there's anyone that would like to speak on the pre-zoning for the Foundry to CDD, please come forward. Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. So now, applicant, would you like to come? So we can ask questions.
Yeah, I guess this is step one of like a five-step process, so, be happy to answer any questions. This is kind of the general part of just rezoning from rural to CDD. I think most of the meat in this thing is when we go from CDD to a PUD, where pretty much most of the zoning takes place.
Any questions? All right. Need a motion for the pre-zoning of the Foundry CDD.
I'll make a motion to approve case RZ 2025-021.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Move on to the rezoning of Foundry CDD.
All right. So this is the rezoning of approximately 155 acres from rural to comprehensive development district. This is west side of North College Street across from the Legacy subdivision. It is the northeast portion of the PUD. These parcels were annexed in October of 2020, rezoned to development district housing with a planned development district overlay. The PDD expired, so it reverted all the way back to rural, so that is why it's now needing to be rezoned. The future land use There are several designations of future land use: low density residential, master plan mixed use and gateway corridor commercial, and the PUD fits those descriptions. I can answer any questions if you have them.
I have a question. With this to CDD, is the mixed use the office buildings?
Yes, it would be kind of down, or I guess down right over there.
Okay.
Although it's not highlighted, but.
All right, anybody else have questions? Okay, thank you. All right, I will need a motion for the rezoning of the Foundry.
Move to approve item RZ-2025-024.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Wait.
The public hearing.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I didn't see it here. This does have a public hearing, so let's go back to that. If any of the public would like to speak on the rezoning of the Foundry CDD, please come forward. Please state your name and your address, and don't forget to sign in when you leave. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much to the Planning Commission for having me up here. My name is Elizabeth Strain. I am a lifelong member of the Auburn community, except for a 3-year stint where I went to grad school, and I always came back to Auburn because this is the best place on earth to be. I totally understand that Auburn is growing. It's growing at an exponential rate, and of course it's growing. It's the best place on earth to be. But something I just want, and before I mention this, I hope by me being here, it shows the city that people in my age demographic, people who are young professionals who are outside of college, really care about what's going on in the city, what's happening to the land, how it's being stewarded, and how the city's thriving. I'm not here to totally object to this development, but I do want to raise an issue with the city. There is 200 acres of wildlife that's in this area that's about to be completely wiped out. And my question for the city is, what's the plan for this wildlife that's about to be moved out? And I'm so thankful that these developers have agreed to leave like 140 acres free around the Sagahatchee, which is such a blessing to the city. But that's 200 acres of wildlife that is now going to be pushed into that 140. How are we going to ensure that these wildlife don't end up in the roads? And I think I speak for a lot of my other fellow citizens as I've talked to them and thinking about coming to this meeting. We've seen a lot more roadkill in the road. And I don't know exactly what the solution is. I have some ideas, but whether that's working with the Auburn Raptor Center to ensure that the owls that are nesting there don't end up, being destroyed. So it's really just trying to ensure that there is a plan in place. And I know the city's authority is kind of limited in this, and this goes into working with ADEM and the Army Corps, and I know they'll have to go through extensive permitting process, but that's the concern I felt like I wanted to raise with the city is, what is the city's plan of action for the 200 acres? And on top of that, has there been any research done as to whether there's endangered species in this area? Endangered, threatened, uncommon, rare? Do we know that? Like, are there any bald eagles in this area? Again, I'm not here to object. I'm so appreciative that these developers are wanting to leave such a massive green space, but that's just what I wanted to raise with the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's next?
My name is Tom Straub. I live at 1935 Watercrest Drive. That's at the end of Ashton Lane, 2 houses over from where Ashton Lane dumps into this area. I have a couple of concerns, mostly dealing with infrastructure. It may be too early in the process to bring this up, but we lived here 30 years ago. And initially, Sagahatchee Creek would back up. When they first put that bridge on Watercrest, the flooding got to the point where it almost lifted the bridge off the roadway. They did some cleanup, I think, and improved the drainage. I'm wondering if this is going to exacerbate that problem and we'll have some more flooding and backup. There used to park a public safety guy out there at the bridge when there was heavy rain, and they haven't done that in a couple of years, but this may make it worse. The second question is, at what point do you establish the the curb cuts and the traffic patterns and these are obvious questions. But as far as stoplights and things like that to control the traffic, at some point I know you're going to do this. I just don't know when.
Okay, thank you. Who's next?
Good evening. My name's Anna Margaret Goldman, and I live off Shelton Mill Road on 803 Socopotoy Court. And I'm originally from Alabama, and I moved away for a long time and moved back here to Auburn 3 years ago, and was really excited to move to this beautiful community. And one of the things that I loved when I moved to Auburn is just the natural area that makes this city so special. And so that's why I'm really concerned, as some of the other fellow citizens, about this development off of North College. So the scale of this project is concerning to me, the clear cutting of hundreds of acres of trees, and then just the lack of infrastructure to support them. I feel like this will really fundamentally change Auburn and not for better. As a citizen living in this area, I'm concerned about the increased traffic, the loss of green space, and then destruction of the wildlife habitat, and how it will impact families like mine and neighbors across this area. So I, again, like other citizens, not opposing the entire development, but can we have some of these conversations around wildlife and the concern of rezoning this from rural to another district. I have a 5-year-old son, and when we're driving around Auburn, he keeps on asking me why they're tearing down all the trees when trees help us breathe better. And it breaks my heart, and I don't know how to answer that question to him. So even a child understands that preserving nature makes a community stronger, and I hope you'll consider Auburn's future, not just the developer's bottom line, as we make decisions that protect this beautiful place for our families and for generations in the future.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign in. Okay. Who's next? Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing.
All right, so I can answer. Yeah, I can answer the bulk of these. So just kind of I guess I'll answer the road network question first. So in all of our PDDs and the PUDs, so when the master development plan is submitted, the road network is a part of it, and the road network is binding. And so in our packet meeting and just kind of meetings with commissioners, one of the things that came up was about the main two connections. So the one on the south side that connects to the top of Shug, and then the one on the east side that connects to North College, just immediately across the street from Cary Creek and Publix. So they have made formal applications to AlDOT. On its face, AlDOT didn't have any issues with the proposed locations of the entrances. I mean, that's something that the developer can speak to a little more in detail if you'd like a little more answers beyond that. But the road network, just kind of what you see here, is kind of a binding agreement from the master development plan. If it does significantly change from this, it would have to come back to this board and to the plan and to the city council for an amendment to amend that. So that is when the road network, and I guess once actual developments start happening, and they submit preliminary plats, and we have plans for different square footages of the commercial, things that trip the threshold will require a light at either of those intersections. That is when that will be required. And so it's not a Q&A, so I can't go back and forth with you. There is other public hearing on this, so if you have another question, you can mention it then. But that's just a general answer, just kind of around traffic pattern and lights and when those are determined. So then just kind of moving to the question about trees and preservation versus conservation, or people kind of planting things back. So this is one of the things that we've talked about a lot, that we've had a lot of collaborative efforts on internally, just kind of working with Public Works, also engineering and planning, just kind of talking about how we can tweak the subdivision regulations to incentivize more conservation. And so one of the things that, even, with the conservation subdivision regs and looking at other different things about requiring open space, giving people density bonuses, which is the core tenet of performance zoning, which is what we have in town, of offering more density if we can get more conserved green space, is looking at how linkages and corridors of green space. And so this would be a pretty good chunk. 140 acres. But one of the things that we still see, especially with this site, and I think also with construction, that is very jarring, very, very jarring. Just, I think especially kind of out on the other side of Cotswolds, where they're doing a lot of the new subdivisions out there. Just how do we get away from mass grading, and how do we incentivize people to take another avenue of development that is not mass grading? Just because, it's good to replant trees. It's a lot better if you can never tear them down in the first place. And I think that's something that the professionals understand, but also just kind of where we're at, the property rights with Alabama being such a pro property rights state, even if we were to incentivize it, I think we would run into trouble if we tried to mandate it. I think that'd be very hard to legally defend on our end, to handcuff developers, to not allow them to maximize the entirety of their property. If they want to cut it all down, then they're kind of entitled to do that. So I want to say to that, this is something that we have thought about, and I think kind of from the implementing the conservation subdivision regs, looking at ways to incentivize more people to, and I guess the PUD is an example of that, of kind of offering preservation and conservation and open space in exchange of other relief. These are ways that we have thought about it, but I think we do want to take it a step further. How do we incentivize people to get away from mass grading? I think one of the things that engineers, not just on staff, but also the development community, would tell you that some sites are just very hard to develop for them without mass grading. Like I said, in the state of Alabama, with it being such a pro property rights state, I think it would be very hard if we were to put that in our subdivision regs or allow different or restrict that entirely. I think that'd be very hard for us to legally defend. But it is something that, like I said, where we are trying to entertain ways that we can incentivize development that does preserve large chunks of open space, and not just open space on islands, but connected open space that does serve benefits to wildlife and also can serve more of a purpose to the people who live around it. That way it can be functional and accessible, not just like an unmowed 20-foot strip of grass or a 20-foot strip like shrubs. So like I said, these are conversations that we have had internally. We're still trying to work through ways of how do we better implement this. I don't think any of the sentiments just about preservation and conservation are lost on anybody at the city. I think it's something that we take to heart, and something that we do try to do. It is just one of the things that just kind of with the balance of just the interest of property owners in the state and development, how do we actually implement it, and how do we incentivize people to do it? So that's just kind of an ongoing process, and I think we're open to working together on that, and even from the public, and just kind of moving forward in a better direction. That way we can maintain our status as a tree city. So I guess that's my answer on that.
Another question that came up, which probably can wait till the next one, but it was about flooding.
Yeah, and so I guess it's not. I see. For the people who are probably aware of it, probably know, but the hash line is probably a pretty good representation of the floodplain of this. There's a massive chunk of this that is. But I imagine the applicant can speak to that, and also water resource management about the flooding down there on that bridge. So.
Can I make a comment too? Well, go ahead if you're going to answer that.
I really can't speak to how the bridge impacts the flooding, but yeah, there is a very large floodplain in the area. That area stays wet for the majority of the year. So.
Yeah, my point is a lot of this stuff that we're working with right now is based on current regulations, current plans, all the stuff we have in place right now. So that's how we make decisions, based on that stuff. Some of these things that we're talking about really require public input into things like the strategic plan, the comprehensive plan, the land use plan. There are things you can do. You can't fix some of that right now, but as you go into the future and you start thinking about how you would like to see Auburn grow, you got to participate in development and change of those plans, because all those plans are dynamic. They can all be changed. And it's just a matter of going through the process. And then we can end up with different rules on how we do things. Now, some of the things you can't get away from in this property rights state. That's just going to be that takes, change of plans at the state level, and that's harder.
So you have to talk to your legislatures.
That's right. But I just say participate. We're trying to do the best we can here. The city looks at all this stuff in a lot of detail, and it's we're moving ahead with what we have.
Commissioners, anyone else? Mr. Cotton? Okay.
Vote again.
Yeah. Spit on this one.
I make a motion to vote on RZ 2025-024.
Yeah, so motion to approve.
Approve,
There we
sorry.
go.
Second. Word left me.
I have a motion and a second for the rezoning to CDD for the Foundry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is the Foundry PUD.
All right, so if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so this is the entire site, and so one of the differences between a PUD and a PUD, other than their different acronyms, so the PUD functions as its own zoning district. The PDD is an overlay district. So as you guys see here, there's the DDH PDD, there's the PDD CDD down, and that's the pink hash in the corner. The overlay really kind of only allows for a max of 2 incentives and exchanges. The PUD has no limit on incentives and exchanges. And like I said, the PDD is just an overlay, and the base zone provides a lot of the guardrails around what can and cannot be done. There are different benefits to taking on a PDD, but like I said, the PUD has much more flexibility, much steeper, I guess I would say, learning curve for the PUD than the PDD. PDDs are pretty simple. You guys have seen them. They come through. They take about 90 days, I'd say, to approval. The PUD takes much longer than that. So those are just kind of the base level differences. So then once we talk about kind of different aspects of the zoning district, so this will, as kind of the underlying zones aren't really relevant. I guess it's, like I said, they're really more relevant for allowing people to rezone out of them. If you want to go to the next slide, we can talk about this. Okay, so as you guys see, it's kind of broken up into areas: Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4. You guys received the different tables that had the use tables broken down in them, and then had the bulk regulations. And so for everybody in the audience, bulk regulations are setbacks, heights, floor area ratio, impervious surface ratio, all these different things. A lot more of the metrics of how we actually design buildings, design sites, preserve different things like that. So that's where a lot of the details are. I included that, and so I'll just kind of provide like a general overview of just kind of what the density is, general height, and then kind of general what the exchanges are. So just kind of at the outset, the max density for this, there was going to be 2,425 dwelling units. We're going to at the top. And so if everything was zone CDD's density is 9.5, 280, you'd be looking kind of around that 2,700-ish. And so it kind of shaves the density down a little bit in that regard. There would be a max of 625 MUD units. And so a multi-unit development pretty much. So that would be capped, and that would be restricted to Area 2 and Area 1. And so there will be a distinction in mixed use and multi-unit developments, but Area 3 and Area 4, so those are kind of those massive wings on the back end, just kind of on the northern side. That's kind of where you'll see all the other different types of housing, pretty much. There will be no commercial areas in Area 3 or Area 4. All of the commercial will be confined to Area 2 and Area 1. And so I do want to make a distinction that Area 2 does follow Yarborough Boulevard, so the road, that the major street plane that does connect all the way from the east to the west, and that then does kind of go up in front, North College, just kind of north of the road, right across from Cary Creek. So that's all Area 2. And so there will be there are different housing units there are different housing types that are permitted here, but they will be permitted with different development standards that will prevent them from taking direct access off of this road, that will prevent them from taking direct access off of North College. All of these different things, like garages not facing the street, things like that, really kind of focusing on the enhanced architecture and the enhanced character of this area. So from density standpoint, and so then I guess going back to the 140 acres of preserved open space. So some of the exchanges also have to do with the trail construction. And so if you guys look at the very top, you guys see where it says, I guess on the last map, it said proposed trail that kind of connects the area 3 there. And then there's also on our green space and greenway master plan, there's a trail that follows the eastern boundary of this property line as well. In PDDs, oftentimes one of the things that we get is the dedication of the greenway space. I think we've talked about it in the past that oftentimes we're accumulating a lot of these all over the place, and eventually we'll go back and build them. In this scenario, the developer will build them. I think one of the things that we're talking about is just kind of in the phasing. So it'll be on the front end of the project. There's the phase 1 construction where the road happens, and then phase 2 where the construction of the trails will be happening. And so really kind of working through that right now in the different green space associated with it. And so the goal for this is that this development will serve as just kind of a really good example of what pedestrian connectivity can be and kind of needs to be in different areas for residents getting to trails, for trails then connecting to residential areas that then connect to commercial areas, and then kind of people being able to easily traverse these areas by foot, bike, scooter, etc., not necessarily needing a car to kind of do any of these things. And so just kind of moving from there, I guess the broad overview that I want to talk about, I guess the exchanges. So there's the construction of the trails, there's the construction of the major street plan, there's also the incentives of enhanced architecture throughout, and then also pedestrian connectivity and providing a multitude of different housing types. So I guess the next part I want to talk about, I guess, is the architecture. So you can go to the next one. So some of the things that, as one of the general ambitions, I think when we talked about the PUD, was one of the complaints that we get a lot in Auburn is that all the houses kind of not all the houses look the same, but the development pattern is essentially the same. It's conventional subdivisions in different places, and it would be better if we would allow people to build different things. And so these are just some of the examples. I've just kind of clicked through. There's different residential components. And so all of these uses are different things that we've kind of talked about, really kind of more of a traditional neighborhood design that kind of embraces immediate proximity to green space, not subdividing off of alleys, but rear alley access, garages off the street, all of these different things that you would see in little denser areas. And so these are things that are going to be features and major components and tenets of this PUD, and the relief that they're getting, I guess, on a very large scale to the tune of several thousand, just kind of depending on how many that they decide to build. It's setbacks. They got shaved lot sizes in some areas for different uses, but a lot of the lot sizes that were for urban areas like townhomes of minimums of 1,800 square feet, those are staying. But there's an increased FAR. So with every lot minimum, the FAR would allow them to build a structure of 2,800 square feet. This has come up in other PDDs that people ask that they are restricted because, they're trying to build on the small lot, but they'll ask for, okay, one of my incentives to be, I need an increased FAR so I can build a bigger structure. And so we increase the FAR so they can build a bigger structure and really kind of allow them to achieve this look. And that way the green space isn't necessarily privatized, but the green space is in more of these communal aspects in the parks that they have access to, the muses they have access to, and then also the 140 acres that they have access to as well. So that's really kind of the exchanges on the bulk regulation side. From a uses standpoint, so a lot of the uses that were shaved and kind of taken from permitted to conditional and CDD. So one of the big things was there will not be short-term rentals here. That is not an allowed use, period. There is also, I shaved back a lot of the more intense uses. So things like hotels, those still conditional uses. And so it's not that we don't want hotels here or that hotels wouldn't be a good fit here. They'd probably be a great fit. I think just from a traffic flow standpoint, the circulation, that needs to be looked at a little more and needs to be something that we're all kind of on the same page about, from the location, look, and all those things, that it complies with the greater theme. And so that's why some of the more intense uses have been shaved back to be conditional uses. And then also the uses have been restricted. Like I said, can you go back to the very first one that shows the areas? So one more. So let's just keep going. No. I think you're going forward. If you can go back to where it says Yeah, the green. There we go. Okay, so Area 3 and Area 4 are going to be predominant residential areas. There will be no commercial here, like I said. And Area 1 on the southern portion, that kind of front shug, this is where the bulk of the office and the commercial is going to go. Like I said, this is 275,000 square feet of commercial space, 60,000 square feet of office space. That is the most intense area that's going to go in Area 1. There will be mixed use will be available in Area 1, but not just like exclusive residential pretty much. Area 2 is going to have office space and commercial, but like I said, it's also going to have residential, but there will be special development standards that allow them to construct along the roadway of Yarborough Boulevard and also on North College, but this will be there'll be standards about not being able to front off it, garages not facing the street, all of those things, just kind of pretty standard. So I just wanted to give a broad overview, kind of talk a little bit more in detail about what some of the uses are, what some of the exchanges were, and like I said, I think the scale of this project really kind of pushes the density, I guess, and also kind of the level of development with this kind of being a hard corner. Like I said, master plan mixed use 2 is really kind of one of the more dense future land use designations that we have. Like I said, this project really does align with that and kind of achieves kind of what the overall vision was for this corner of kind of always being a mixed use corner, kind of providing a hard corner with a lot of big residential boxes, big commercial boxes, and also kind of providing space for commercial as well. And I just also talking with the developer. For a lot of people, I know they hear the numbers of 2,400 units and think that's a lot, like for them to build that next year. Developer would tell you themselves, I mean, this is probably like a 15, 20-year build out of that, so not something that's going to happen all at once. And then I guess finally, from a use standpoint, churches were also given the conditional use designation, not a permitted by right, similar to every single district in town. And that's just because if a church comes in and buys one of the wings buys all of Area 3 or Area 4 or something, I think we'd probably want to talk about that and kind of figure that out from a traffic flow standpoint. So like I said, so generally speaking, pulled back on some of the more intense uses that would be more intense from a traffic circulation standpoint, really kind of provided special development standards for different places where residential uses can front, and then also the position of no short-term rentals here, and then also it's in the staff report, but it's probably something that there'll be a lot more conversation about, just kind of around the family definition presiding over the entire area, and so that's up to 2 unrelated, not 5.
Right.
So like I said, so a lot of this is PUDs are their own zoning district that have to be talked about, negotiated, and kind of worked through. They're not an overlay district that carries the base designations of the underlying zone. So that's just kind of an overview from a density standpoint, kind of what we were thinking about, things that we've talked about, what the exchanges are, and also where some of these uses are going to locate, and then also kind of what those uses look like. And so then, I guess just from a commercial standpoint, final thing, I'll stop talking. The commercial's really just going to be another point of enhanced architecture, where it'll be brick, there'll be exposed metal, really kind of look much more of that modern take on like the rustic industrial vibe in some of the commercial districts. So there's language that codifies that as well, that goes with this.
So as you made the decision to I guess, make some of those uses, the intense uses, conditional rather than just leave them as by right in CDD, how did you make the decision? What was the, okay, this is too much? I mean, how did?
Yeah. So I think normally just kind of from an intensity of the use, and so it's not that hotels, like I said, not that like hotels are a really great economic driver and something that definitely would make sense in Area 1 or something like that. But I think just kind of from hotels would then trip a different level of traffic study, and I guess we're gonna do the traffic study at the front end. That's fine. It's kind of like a North Star, but then kind of whenever there's substantial development coming in, whether that be several hundred units or several 100,000 square feet of commercial coming in at one time, we would just want to make sure that, okay, well, let's do the traffic study specifically for this, and making sure that like any of the traffic improvements that we had planned for or that we were locked into were going to be sufficient for those developments.
When it raised to that level, that's when you said, okay, we need to have a conditional.
Yeah, and then I think also in different different areas. So one of the things that we talked about was the character of Area 3 and Area 4 were to be much more of an exclusive residential area, not a mixed-use area, not a commercial area. And so Area 1 and Area 2, like I said, also kind of following that corridor, we're going to be more of mixed use, and then kind of as you get to Area 1, that was going to be a much more intensive commercial development. And so that's why the more intense development is pushed towards Area 1, and then Area 3 and Area 4 are where the residential uses are, kind of primarily. And so from the intent with the character of the different areas, also kind of understanding the phasing, that was what I was kind of using as a guide for what I think made sense, and just also just kind of from past conversations with developers about what they're seeking from an FAR standpoint and issues that they run into in other PDDs with ISR and things like that, of making the decision to shave things in different places.
Makes sense.
I need to ask you a question. You did say at the beginning of, when you started talking, that AlDOT had said okay on the egress on both places.
Yeah, and so that is that is what the applicant said. I guess they'd be able to speak better to that, like what they submitted and what they were comfortable with.
Because you knew I was going to ask that. Let me ask you something else. When the traffic study has not been done.
No, it hadn't been done. That's because this is a zoning action, and
Right. And I know they probably don't have to do this to take in consideration that there is going to be a new high school next door.
Oh, I think they would, because that's not a secret.
With
so.
anywhere, with anywhere from 1,800 to 2,000 students.
Yeah. That will have to be taken
Plus
into
staff.
consideration.
And they would more than likely be using some of these roads.
That's actually been anticipated. That road's been on our plan for a long time to get it through there, so
Right.
we will definitely be
Right.
partnering with them on that road construction.
Right. Okay. All right.
So my question is as we look at Area 3 and Area 4, and I understand that build out is sometime down the road, that's substantial residential development that will be in those areas. Is the belief that the road infrastructure that's going in to support Area 2 and Area 1 will also support Area 3 and Area 4? Or are there additional,
Yeah, so I think kind of the nature of road construction, I think the priority is so there's a phasing map that we got associated with it. The major road going through the east and west connector, Yarborough Boulevard, that's the primary road that construction is going to start on immediately, and that's the one that's going to open up kind of Area 1 and Area 2. And there's going to be a lot more discussion, kind of deliberate discussion around Area 3 and Area 4, because there's going to be the infusion of private roads to kind of utilize that for on-street parking for some of these places as well. So there'll be bigger streets that go through that serve as the backbone off of the main road, but I think the main thing would be kind of supporting Area 1 and Area 2. And I guess that's also kind of a nature of this development. This is probably going to be one of the few developments where the commercial probably develops faster than the residential. Normally it's the inverse. Normally commercial follows the rooftops in different places, but with the traffic counts being so high and there already being so many rooftops over here, commercial is going to be one of the first things that kind of sets off this development beyond the residential. So that's why I think it's flipped. I don't think we'll see, like an immediate influx of multifamily. I think we'll see the immediate influx of commercial here. And I think to the point that when the applicant's been talking about it, they get a lot of calls about this now, but they haven't had the zoning, and so they really haven't taken any calls or anything about it. But it's one of the things where they're just kind of telling people, well, once I get this zone, I'll be happy to talk about it. But they've already received calls about it, and that's just because of the nature of the development and the location of it.
So let me get this timeline straight. So the first thing that's going to be constructed is the Greenway, correct?
Yeah. So
Be in Yarborough.
Yeah.
Boulevard.
Right. So yeah. There'll be the construction of the road, and then the construction and delivery. So the construction and the delivery of the road, I guess, that'll be in phases. And I guess the developer can speak more to kind of the phasing of the road. That's been an ongoing topic, just kind of from the cost sharing standpoint associated with that. But kind of push to phase 1 to probably be that east-west connector kind of deal of the Greenway. And then as it kind of moves out, that's when Area 1 and then Area 2 will be constructed.
Okay, all right. Any other questions, Commissioner, before I open public?
Justice, in the packet, the table that's in here, are those which y'all have agreed on for the uses, or is that still being worked on?
No, so that's kind of what we've agreed on. I think the only thing that'll change, I think, is Area 2, and that's just because in the initial graphic that we got, I thought Area 2 is really just kind of this town center area that's central to it. Area 2 is what lines everything on the north side of Yarborough Boulevard as well. And so that is why there's going to be the permitted uses, but they have to follow special development standards. And so that was one of the changes that we recently made once we had a conversation about it. And so the tables that you guys received in the packet, they are largely reflective of what they're going to be. I think the other change in it is that the ISR is going to be 0.9 on everything, and that's because they are inserting and as how they're doing things. There's going to be private rear alley access on a lot of their lots, and the only way for them to achieve that is instead of platting it and dedicating it, it is going to be a part of people's property.
So can you do the hotel motel thing again? Because you have in the CDD that it's conditional, but then in Area 1 it's permitted. Is that right?
Yeah, right. And so Area 1 is one of the more intense areas, but like I said, one of the things that we were looking at was kind of as they push back towards the road was kind of making that a conditional use. And so, like I said, in some of these areas,
Area 1 it's okay.
correct, yeah.
Okay. So red is where you've changed it from what it really was before when they're
No. So I guess.
why you've used different colors.
Oh no. So mine.
It's
So
confusing to me.
yeah. So all of my changes are the highlighted cells in green, not just ones in red. Yeah.
Okay, ours are reds.
Right.
Pink is red, yeah.
Ours are red, so.
Ours are red. That is correct.
No. So.
Mine are red.
No. So there's the first page that's all like white and it has white and black and red. So if you go to the next page, then that's where like you'll see the highlighted and green stuff.
Okay, I'm looking at the summary.
Okay,
one,
I see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So if we go to Area 2, commercial entertainment, book hobby. But yeah, so yeah, all of my input I highlighted in green. Like I said, I wanted to show kind of what they requested and then kind of what we shaved back. And like I said, what I shaved back is everything in green, like the highlighted stuff in green. So the text is still in red, but like the cell that is highlighted in green is kind of what I changed.
You changed, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, this requires a public hearing, so would anyone like to speak on the Foundry at North College PUD? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Would the applicant like to speak?
Yes, good evening. Yeah, we've been working on this for probably a year and a half. We've probably been working on the zoning part of this for probably close to 9 to 10 months with the city. So there's been a lot of back and forth. There's been a lot of collaboration. To your, to answer some of your questions on the ALDOT stuff, we presented them the master plan with all our with the anticipated uses and provided that with them. They didn't have, where this east-west road goes, it aligns with Cary Creek Parkway to the east, and then it is an extension of the road that is going to go in front of the high school and aligns with Yarborough Farms Boulevard. And so, when we built Cary Creek Parkway, 15 years ago, it was always anticipated that we were trying to get a light at that location. And I would expect with this traffic, that there'll be a signal on this end. There's already going to be a signal on the school end of Yarborough Farms as part of the school project.
Okay.
So, for the most part, this is going to be a parallel street to Shug Jordan. That's a public street. Then we have our north-south drive here that's coming in off of Shug Jordan. Both of these locations, we presented spacing and all this stuff. AlDOT didn't have any initial concerns with that, but again, they wanted a traffic study for more detail to confirm. I mean, based upon our amount of road frontage, we can have more curb cuts than we have shown on both of these AlDOT streets. So we feel like we're gonna be fine there. I would expect we're probably gonna have signalization at both, but we'll see how that goes from that side. In regards to that, yeah, you cleared it up. When we put together this and we were trying to compare the uses that we were trying to get compared to CDD, because CDD is all around us, we were just trying to give a visual of this is what CDD is, and then if we were changing it from conditional to permitted or permitted to conditional, we highlighted it red. So if you look in those tables, if it's red, that means it's different than what CDD zoning originally had, okay? And so that was the way that we kind of presenting it to the city, so they didn't have to dig back through the chart. They could just see what we were proposing to change. And then, of course, Justice mentioned that the separate one with the green cells is the stuff that he was changing. You know, on this particular site, we're almost at, we're 40+% open space. In a normal CDD zoning, you'd only require 25% open space. We have a lot of open space. We have a lot of open space that's going to be floodplain and woods that's totally left undisturbed. But then there is a lot of the places, kind of the lighter green area is for the most part, most of the areas that we are going to disturb. In regards to the topo on this site has severe topo. This isn't rolling terrain. No. This is mountainous terrain in this particular location. You know, there's upwards of 80 and 100 feet of elevation change depending on what side of the 280 acres that you're on. Mm-hmm. There is a ton of elevation change here. And so we've done some preliminary studies. We have analyzed that. At the end of the day, we have to make our site tie into this future road that's going to go in front of the high school. You know, in regards to like what's delivered, we do have a phasing plan. The east-west road, we can only build that east-west road. Our property line ends at the middle of that creek. So we can only build the road just short of that creek, right? And then there'll be a bridge that then connects it through. And then there's still a portion of that road that's got to be built to connect to the high school, right? That's on somebody else's property that we don't control. But yeah, in regards to delivery and sequence, you know, for the most part, a lot of the area of 1 and 2 is going to have to be graded to build the road, just with the amount of topo and the grades and just how everything works through there. But we plan on, like we said, the east-west road is going to go in first. Probably the north-south road is probably going to go in because we're doing the commercial will be started on the front end, and then at some portion, right, we'll start on the residential. It's just the residential on the back is going to be at a lot slower pace than at this commercial, because we're going to be delivering a lot of this mass graded on the commercial for people to immediately be able to work on. I know there were some questions too about infrastructure. You know, the city from an infrastructure perspective, from water and sewer, there's plenty of infrastructure through there. In regards to floodplain and floodway, those maps were just revised at the beginning of this year. We are planning to do all of our improvements outside of the floodplain and floodway. The only improvements that would be in the floodplain is just the trail system that we're going to be building. The east-west one is going to be mainly along the sewer easement route next to Salgahatchee. This north-south one will be adjacent to that creek, but those are the only improvements that we plan on doing inside the floodplain. We don't plan on doing anything else other than that. Other than that, I know you guys have a lot of information. Be happy to answer any questions that you all have.
Anyone have any more questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question probably directed to planning director. Did I hear it right when you said that in area 1 we were going to have by right a hotel, or was that still going to be conditional?
No, that's conditional. So I checked it. So in the green cell it is conditional.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Oh,
Yeah,
should be.
there we go.
Okay, any more questions?
Oh,
We're gonna
yeah.
do the public hearing.
All right, cool.
Well, I thought we just did. We already did it
Okay, yeah. So,
for this.
so yeah, I guess there's, yeah, 'cause I guess there are no public hearings on the annexations. This is the final one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess if you have any questions about anything, if you just want to hang around, if you want to ask us after the meeting, or if you want to come by the office tomorrow, we'll be happy to talk to you.
Because we already closed the public hearing. I'm sorry. All right, I need a motion for the Foundry PUD.
Move to approve item RZ 2025-026.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the Foundry PUD. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Next on our agenda is annexation on the Auburn Place.
All right, so this is a request for annexation of approximately 50 acres. Property is located on the north side of Shug Jordan Parkway, west of North College Street. The annexation priority is high. They are not annexing the entire parcel, but it's greater than 3 acres, so that does not apply. I can answer any questions if you have them.
And the plan is to leave this property rural?
No, it
No,
would
that's
be,
part of the
sorry.
Foundry.
it would be part
Yes,
of the
the
foundry.
foundry,
Yes.
okay.
Part of the
Gotcha.
Foundry,
I should
All
mention
it's
right.
that.
just outside the city
All right, I
limits.
got you now.
Any questions? Okay, this annexations do not require a public hearing, so I need a motion for annexation of Auburn Place, 50 acres.
I'll make a motion to approve case AX 2025-017.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
This one.
Next is the annexation of Owens family.
All right, now, this is an annexation request from Jolly Development to annex approximately 76.97 acres from the city limits. This parcel of land is directly located directly north of Hickory Dickory Park, kind of just across from Shug Jordan Parkway. You can see in the outlined property that this is the general location of it. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. And again, this is part of the Foundry PUD.
Yep.
So.
I'm oriented now.
Anyone on the commission have a question? All right, again, this is annexation. It does not require a public hearing. I need a motion and a second on annexation of the Owens Family Partnership.
I'll make a motion to approve case AX 2025-018.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, pre-zoning Odom Creek Estates.
Fun stuff, man. Fun stuff. All right. So there's no. I guess this is on the pre-zone and there's the annexation. So there's no public hearing on the annexation. There's a public hearing on the pre-zoning. This is the one that we got all the emails about. And I think even one of the exhibits is someone email. So I just want to start off and say that. I'm not going to read the letter, or I guess the email, as a part of the exhibit. We'll probably, I think some people requested that their emails be used as exhibits, and that their emails are kind of codified in the record for the few people who did. We can do that, and so we will do that. We'll attach that to the minutes kind of deal, reference them. But just kind of from the pre-zoning request, and I guess the public hearing, I guess before I get started, I just want to say, so on the public hearing, if you have any questions, we'll answer them at the end. Public hearings are not Q&As, so I'm not going to answer you just kind of like during the public hearing. And then I guess if someone makes a similar point to you, try to use your public hearing to make a different point than from people who already spoke. So I guess that's just kind of the general outlines, kind of guardrails of public hearings. So Odom Creek Estates. The request is for a recommendation of the City Council to pre-zone approximately 360 acres to a conservation overlay district. And so just what pre-zone is and how that's different for everybody. Pre-zonings are a decision on the zoning request before somebody annexes it. Like it's just an ode to the property owners pretty much. So if you want to go to the next slide. All right, so this property is east of Society Hill Road and south of Pierce Chapel Road. So and I guess kind of as you see to the north, there are a lot of properties out here that have the COD designation. And normally when you see a zoning district that is in proximity to another, the immediate thought will be then, well, this zoning district makes sense in proximity to it. Except for in this case, when the Conservation Overlay District, one of its main features is to be a Conservation Overlay District for the Lake Ogletree watershed, according to our subdivision regs and to our zoning district. This property is not in the Lake Ogletree watershed. It is in another watershed. And this property is also outside of the optimal boundary. Now, that's not really relevant to the pre-zoning requests. But for, I guess, everybody who's not familiar with our subdivision regs, you can realize a conservation subdivision outside of the city limits as long as you are within the planning jurisdiction. And so, I guess if you want to go to the next slide. The point I want to make is that a conservation subdivision is possible without annexing, and I guess that's kind of the main thing of I guess my position and I guess kind of the staff report. So from a pre-zoning request, the zone itself I would say is not really necessary. The conservation overlay district, like I said, does not have to be applied to anything that is outside of the Lake Ogletree watershed. Then it opens up different things from lot minimum standpoint, and the different processes and procedures for that. And I guess kind of Exhibit 1 here is not reflective of what a conservation subdivision will look like. A conservation subdivision requires that somebody identify the primary conservation areas, and that's wetland, streams, steep slopes, and they conserve those areas and then build around those. This was kind of the inverse of where they put the lots in, kind of connect it to the roads, and then kind of put in the conservation areas. So this is one of the things that we told the applicant, we have no problem using this exhibit. I just wanted to make it explicitly clear that this exhibit as displayed would not be compliant for a conservation subdivision. So then I think on the other side, and I know we got a lot of feedback, probably a lot of people in the room who would like to speak, you're just kind of concerned about development on this side and 100 lots. So one of the things that I did want to point out is that for somebody who is within the planning jurisdiction, but not in the city limits and outside of the optimal boundary, they are entitled to subdivide down to 1 acre lots, period. So if you want to do the math, 360 divided by 1, that's roughly the number that they can get. So, and I guess, not accounting for geometry, wetland, streams, all those things. So the proposal of roughly 100 from a density standpoint, it could be way more. And I think also to everybody, I guess not just in the audience, but I think for people, one of the things that people really should understand is that when you choose to live on the periphery of town, in these rural areas, if you want to go back to the approximate, please. Yeah, so on these peripheral areas, a lot of the white is outside the city limits. These areas do not have zoning. There is no use control in these areas. These areas can be whatever they want to be. If the property owner decides they want to put however many trailer homes there, they can do that. If the property owner decides they want to put processing plant there, they can do that. This is one of the risks of locating on the edge and the periphery of the city in proximity to a lot of county land. And this is one of the reasons that I think also, I guess on the annexation side that we'll talk about, this is one of the reasons that we encourage growth inside the city. If you would like guarantees on what your neighbors can and cannot do, I would strongly advise that all your neighbors around you probably be zoned and be in the city. Just because if you live on the outskirts of the city, like I said, you are not entitled to zoning protection, and your neighbor is also not bound by any uses, even on the county standpoint. There is no zoning in any of these areas that are outside the city limit. So that's just like kind of the main point that I wanted to make from a density standpoint. Like I said, they can realize this outside the city. They can realize far more density than what they are showing And also from a use standpoint, they do not have to put homes there. They could put literally any use that they so choose to put there that they wanted to make work. And those are public roads. They can use them. So I guess that is my position. I guess that's essentially what I got to in the staff report. And I guess I just wanted to provide clarity on why there was so much COD around this area. And that's because these areas are actually in the Lake Ogletree watershed. This particular property is not in the Lake Ogletree watershed. And like I said, any ambitions for a conservation overlay could be realized outside of the city in the planning jurisdiction without annexing in and rezoning the COD.
Follow up one question. So this is not inside the optimal boundaries, what you said?
Yeah, this is not.
And was it originally, and it was pulled on purpose?
Yeah, so it was partially in the optimal boundary. I think the part to the east, and then one part was, but then it was pulled out because, like I said, we do not. Auburn is in a position where we no longer have to grow geographically to grow from a population standpoint. We're seeing a lot more infill development. We're seeing a lot more density go in kind of other areas. And so growing spatially was one of the things that on the future land use plan and on those recommendations that we wanted to get away from. So there was some contractions in different areas. There were contractions down on Highway 14 outpass. I guess that's Wimberley is that road, or Willis Turk? Yeah, Willis Turk. And also out here, because I mean we've seen kind of the piecemeal annexations, but that was one of the things that was a focus of the future land use plan update of really incentivizing infill development and getting away from encouraging large development on the periphery that we've seen. We've seen an uptick in a lot of the rural subdivisions.
And the city is not providing water and sewer in that area?
Yeah, I guess that'd be.
That's correct. There's no water or sewer available through the city.
Any other questions to staff?
Yes, so you said that they can subdivide that property by right to 1 acre lots. Does the city of Auburn have any obligation to provide any utilities for them without them being annexed into the city?
No, the water board nor the city would provide any service to any properties that are not annexed.
Let me say this. If, even though they are outside the city limits, if they wish to plat this, then it will have to come before us, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Yep. So, and I guess kind of the difference on plats. I mean, plats are, they meet the standards. They have to be approved, and so we'd have 30 days to respond. And if they sent us a plat for 320 and they met 320 lots and they met all of our subdivision regulations, we would have to approve it.
Okay. Any other questions?
But this does not meet the conservation overlay district rules.
No, and like I said, the main part of that is because it is outside the Lake Ogletree watershed. And I guess also the conservation subdivision, if you go back to the exhibit, kind of like we talked about, it was, so we talked about this in the pre-app meeting, so it's not like they're finding out our stance on this is tonight. You can tell that they clustered the lots kind of around the existing infrastructure and not around the preservation areas, those conservation areas. Conservation subdivisions require a site walk. They require a concept plan. They require extensive staff review on the front end before there is even a submission of a plat. And so we had the meeting where we kind of informed them of that, like, hey, here's the actual process of this. Here's some things that you probably need to think about. Some of these things need to be redone. You got some of these primary conservation areas inside some lots. That's not allowed in a conservation subdivision. There just needs to be some changes, and you probably need to just kind of rethink how you've done this, where you preserve those conservation areas initially and then cluster the lots kind of around that. Infrastructure is not really a consideration here. So what they're showing does not comply, and also this just kind of the intent of the conservation subdivision was intended to protect the Lake Ogletree watershed, not to allow people to realize a way out of lot minimums to increase their density.
Okay. All right, this does have a public hearing for the pre-zoning of the Odom Creek Estates. Would anyone like to speak? Please come forward. You have 5 minutes, and don't forget to sign in. And please, when you come up, state your name and your address.
Thank you. Glenn Granberry. I live on 8975 Terra Lane in the Bell Terra subdivision. And so our subdivision is a neighborhood of about 19 3-acre lot estates within the rural city of Auburn. And our street is about half a mile long and it currently serves only our residents. So my home is one of the 2 lots at the end of our street that are adjacent to the proposed Odom Creek development. And I've been asked to speak on behalf of our neighboring residents so that you don't have to hear every one of us speak, many of which are in here today. I think if y'all would stand up, your Bell Terra subdivision, so you can see our population that's here tonight. And also want to take a moment to express our disappointment in the fact that our neighborhood wasn't notified of this hearing tonight with any kind of signage, or the only way we knew was 2 letters were sent to the property owners that touched the property,
Right.
and that was just this past weekend, about 4 days ago. So a little disappointed in the notice that we got to prepare for this meeting. While we understand the need for growth, we are deeply concerned about the plan to use our streets as the primary entrance into this new development. First of all, traffic safety. A subdivision of 100 homes would generate well over 1,000 vehicle trips per day. And based on the initial design, about 80% of those would come down our street to get to those homes. Our street was never designed to handle that kind of volume. Our street has no sidewalks. It has several elevation changes and blind curves. In fact, the first half of our street actually doesn't have curbs on them as well. So adding this level of traffic creates serious risks for our pedestrians that cycle and walk and children who play on the street. It would be very dangerous for that amount of traffic to be coming through our street that wasn't designed for that purpose. Second, infrastructure and design regulations. I'll just mention a few of these. Auburn subdivision regulations require safe and adequate access. Our street was built for low-density traffic, not a collector road for a major subdivision. Using it as a main entrance place is an unfair burden on our neighborhood and does not meet the standards of safe circulation. Additionally, the support for septic tanks on 1-acre lots seems to go against Auburn subdivision regulations. We all have 3-acre lots and we're required to do so for septic tank use within the city. It seems as if the development is attempting to use undeveloped green space within the neighborhood property limits to somehow circumvent these regulations in our eyes. Many residents of Bell Terra experience high level of septic tank issues currently, even on our own property with those 3-acre lots. And according to the USDA's Web Soil Survey website, the proposed development soil ratings for the entire area listed is listed as very limited. The definition of very limited indicates that the soil has one or more of the features that are unfavorable for the septic use. This limitation generally cannot be overcome without major soil reclamations, special design, or expensive installation procedures. Poor performance and high maintenance can be expected. That's a quote from the USDA's website on the soil on this proposed development. With this soil rating level and the reduction to the 1-acre lot sizes, we don't see how this land would be suitable for the proposed development and septic tank use. And then finally, based on the City of Auburn's interactive growth model in the most recent Comp Plan 2030 document, the proposed land for this new development falls outside of the optimal boundary scenario, as y'all discussed, meaning this location was seen as an undesirable location to annex into the city at the time based on the infrastructure and city services being adequate to support it. In fact, the City of Auburn's annexation policy on the bottom of page 3 says the property proposed for annexation should be located within the optimal boundary defined as appropriate for the annexation in Comp Plan 2030. So just with that said alone, I'm not sure why we go through the effort of creating an optimal zone if we're not going to adhere to it when we annex property. So based on these facts, we're asking that the development and the pre-zoning of the COD not be approved. If this agenda item does happen to be approved, we respectfully request that the commission require the developer to design an alternative entrance that connects directly to a collector or arterial road, rather than funneling all traffic through our subdivision. At a minimum, we would ask for a formal traffic impact study to evaluate the risk and ensure compliance with Auburn's own planning standards. We are not opposed to growth. We're opposed to unsafe and inequitable growth. Please protect the integrity of our neighborhood and require a safer, more
Excuse me.
responsible.
So you're out of time. I'm sorry.
You're out
Oh,
of
I
time.
had 5
Just
words
so-
there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're good.
That's okay. Who would be next?
My name is Shannon Weaver, 8879 Terra Lane. I will have lived there come February for 24 years. My main concern also is safety, about the exponential increase in traffic, 400 to 500% over what we currently have. Suppose it's a safety issue for our residents and mailboxes. More on that later. I'm one of the current residents that walk my dogs. The road follows the natural terrain. This is one of those that was not bulldozed. There's curves, there's steepness. And the word lane, very apt, Terra Lane. It may not be clear from the e-packet, but like Glenn said, we do not have sidewalks. So the safety of those walking their dogs, pushing strollers, children riding bicycles is very much of a concern of mine. And I ask you to consider that when you pre-zone and annex, even though you don't have the public hearing for that. As mentioned by Glenn, the city is outside the 2020 master plan, outer bounds. This bears repeating, but I will not belabor it. The soils on the property have potential limitations for septic tank absorption fields, compounded by the small lot sizes, which really limits the design of those plans. And you've heard about the experiences. I wish we had time to go into them, but there's definitely costly problems and environmental issues. And I have personally walked, not lately, thank goodness, because my neighbors fix problems when they occur, but I have smelled raw sewage when walking in the wet season. If not denied outright, because it's outside of the optimal boundary, I ask that the decision on the petition be postponed and studied in more detail to consider all of the impacts. I've lived in the Auburn, Opelika area since 1992, and this is the first time my husband and I have ever had any conversations of moving. I lived in the area. We had that first conversation when learning that our humble Terra Lane might be a traffic artery for logging, construction, and up to 1,000 vehicles per day. I'm a civil engineer, environmental engineer. I'm a level 4 certified conservation planner with 30 years experience, over 30 years. And I can tell you there's no way that Terra Lane should be used as a thoroughfare for that much traffic. Also, we can surely expect some significant leachate, septic tank leachate from some of the proposed lots. I appreciate your service. I really do. The hard decisions you have to make and each month, and also listening to the residents of Belterra. Thank you.
Thank you. Who would be next?
Hello. My name is Mary Beth Wolf. I have lived in the adjoining property that is green on that map for 24 years. We have had 4 to 5 repairs and extensions to our humble little septic tank in that time. There are 3 in our family. Sewage is a major problem out here. The leaches is a huge problem. I have a horticulture background with graduate degree courses in water runoff. When I tell you that this is not a good plan for this property, I couldn't be any more sincere. I am not opposed to that property being developed in any way. I do ask that when you do that, that it is done in a way that incorporates it with the rest of the surrounding area. This is not This is not conducive with that whatsoever. You've heard there are no sidewalks. We all have these septic systems all the time. They're all gonna have to be engineered. This is really an unacceptable amount. You need to do soil studies out there before this is allowed. Absolutely. Because I will tell you, in the last 2 years, you approved a subdivision of our property. It is 21 acres. You approved it on the basis that it was 3 acres or more. You would not approve us any other way. We were denied any other way, which was the correct answer. You couldn't have been more correct on that. I ask that you please stick with that answer when you talk about the property that is directly adjacent to us. That property is identical to ours. I've walked it. Our dogs have gone missing. We've tried to get them back. Our neighbors' dogs have gone missing. We have seen this property. It is exactly like ours. If you don't do 3 acres on that, the runoff, the sedimentation, the erosion is going to be unreal. We had to hire a company that worked with ADM in order for us to even decide what size they needed to be. The smallest one of ours is 3.47. That's what ADM wanted. That's what you wanted. We ask that you continue with that exact same mindset. If you're going to do these things, if you're going to pass it, I just ask that you would pass it based on those 3 acres. I have no problem with that. Growth will happen. We understand that. And I also know that it's very, very easy to collect from areas like this, the taxes, the income. But that entryway into Belterra, that burden is unreal. You have taken 77 lots and put them just on that property. In what world would that be fair? Would you be happy if there were 2 entrances into this subdivision proposed? One of them had 17 to 19 homes and the other one had 77? Yet your planning commission sign went on the furthest one out. So the people who lived in Belterra, they couldn't drive by that sign. They weren't notified. That's unreal. That couldn't be more unfair to us as civilians. I just ask that you would please consider that this not be any less than 3 acres. And please consider that these waterways, this erosion, this runoff, it is a problem. If you want, you're welcome on my property at any time. You are more than welcome. You can see what happens when we put a road in. You can see what happens when we try to do any of this work. This is not the red clay soil that most of Auburn has. This is a sandy, silty mess. We have wet weather springs that have destroyed our own personal driveway. This is the most unbelievable proposal I have ever seen, to put 1 acre lots. I appreciate the fact that they're staying out of the wetlands. I appreciate the fact that they want to use the property in general, because it does have value. That property does have value, but it has value with less density. This plan, it's far too harem-scarum. It's like we did what we wanted to do and we worked everything else around it. That's not the way this works. That's not the way ADM would see this. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Don't
you.
forget to sign in. Anyone else would like to speak?
Hello, good evening. My name is Janet Bell. I have a home on Terra Lane, 8830 Terra Lane. And I'm listening to the comments that it's our fault we chose to live on the peripheral of Lee County. I have a home that some of you might know, a second home also here in Auburn, on Richland Road. You probably know where Richland Road is. It took us 30 minutes to just traverse a small area of the Richland Road area, the Cotswolds. You have massive buildings behind there. So some of us have chosen not to live in a major subdivision. We live there sometimes. I have a family member that lives in that home too. And I've been very thankful that we have a subdivision with 19 homes. We do have septic tank problems, and we've already been talking when it's Christmas week, and all of our 19 homes have more than 2 people in them. We have no water. We have no hot water, and we have no water pressure. It goes to maybe 25% water pressure because we're under a different water system. And then you're going to burden this area with an overrun of way too many homes and even any more homes. And I don't know really how we'll be serviced there as homeowners. And so, yes, it's a nice area. So was the Cotswolds at one point on Richland Road. And you have overdeveloped that. We've owned properties here for the last 8 years. This city has been way overdeveloped. I don't know what you've done with all this massive amount of tax money that you have gotten from all this development. It's amazing, quite frankly. But you have definitely not put the homeowner, the conservation of this beautiful city, the charm, quite gone. I don't understand the master plan. My son attended here. He somewhat was involved 8 years ago when he worked as a plainsman. He was involved in listening, and they were asked about what they would see as a future development of the city. But there's no real concern for what happens other than let's see how dense we can make it, and let's see how much more money we can get out of this small land space called Lee County. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak?
Good evening. My name is David Ray. So I may be speaking on behalf of a lot of people in Chapel Heights. We actually own the home that is directly is 9040 Chapel Heights Drive, which is the last house on the cul-de-sac before the proposed entryway to the new subdivision. And I'm not going to get into all the technical things that we all know that are issues that a lot of these citizens have come up here and professed, which I agree 100%. But you know, we love Auburn. We have a daughter at Auburn. I've got a son. I'm going to move up here and put in Auburn. And you know, I've worked a long time in a career and till I could afford to live in a nice neighborhood like this. And it was you know, it wasn't easy. And we picked out a subdivision that was going to have, you know, 26 homes. And we picked out a lot, and we chose a builder. And as that house was built, we put scripture on every room and every stud, because that was where we wanted to live. We wanted to raise our grandchildren in a subdivision that was going to be quiet and safe. And when you think about dump trucks and material trucks and more vehicles down that quiet subdivision, it just doesn't sound right. And I know I speak on behalf of all my neighbors because we're that close. We talk all the time. We meet all the time. We do things together. We are a close-knit, small resident. So I'm against it. I'm against the road that going through our neighborhood. And I am quite a little, you know, the fact that my house is right there, but it affects all of us. It affects the traffic. It's going to affect the traffic for the schools. I think in 2022 there was already an issue with concerns with traffic with the schools. Okay, so this is just going to add more. So I just request that, you know, that they look at this from all directions, understand that, you know, we moved here for a reason, and we chose that subdivision for a reason, and we work hard to pay for those houses that are in that subdivision to be in that type of subdivision. So, but I said I'd keep it short. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign in. Next.
My name is James Cox, 8636 Terra Lane. My neighbors have done a great job, but I just want to call out that if you go to the Auburn City website, Terra Lane and Chapel Heights and this proposed area do show up under the same watershed. And I know in the planning documents it calls out a different watershed, but the website calls that whole area the same watershed. So I just want to point that out.
Anybody else that would like to speak? Okay, seeing no one else, I'll close the public hearing. With the applicant, is the applicant here? Now, would you like to come?
Hey, everybody. I'm sure y'all may have questions. I'll go ahead and address some of the ones they've already
Please
had.
address the ones from the public.
And I appreciate everybody coming out.
Yeah, hold on. So I guess kind of I think we kind of deviated. So I guess how we've been handling kind of public hearings, like we've been having applicants. I know you guys kind of have, we have slides kind of ready to go from you all that you all submitted. I guess unfortunately, I guess he just needs to speak towards the questions, and I guess it's fine. Like if you guys ask him questions, he just can't kind of deviate off of that. I guess he would have needed to speak during the public hearing, and I think that's what you're gonna raise, Walker.
I was looking for name and address. I don't know.
Yeah. All good. Okay. Yeah. So yeah. I'm sorry, Daniel, but yeah, if you just want to speak to the questions directly, and I guess if you do need the assistance of your slides, we have those ready to go for you. So.
But respond to questions from.
Yeah. Correct.
But I thought he was
Maybe
going
y'all
to
can
do.
help me out if
Okay.
That's what you were gonna do, right?
Let's talk about the septic
yeah,
tanks.
I think there's a technicality we got to make sure that we
Right.
address, but I would love to address questions from everyone. Everybody has it tonight. I appreciate everybody coming out. Happy to. I'll pivot a little bit. Thanks to Justice, and happy to honor that. So just to give kind of a general overview, and then let y'all ask some of those questions that have already been asked. One of the reasons that we're pursuing this property is knowing that the landowner invested in this property and has a desire to develop it. And I'm sure most everybody knows here, my personal farm is only one parcel away from this property. So as a builder and developer, I know a lot of what's going on and try to keep tabs on that stuff. And honestly share some of the same feelings and I think sentiment that a lot of these neighbors do, and look forward to reaching out. We wrote every one of their names down and having conversations with them. So that is why we're going with this conservation overlay, and trying to preserve up to 2/3 of the property untouched. You know, a lot of what we heard tonight, right? Even on other projects, that means you're not mass grading. That means you're not clearing trees. That means 2/3 of this remains untouched. We certainly appreciate and respect that this is just a zoning request, and that we'll be working through the plat phase when we come back for a preliminary plat and have to adjust some of that stuff to fine tune it and for the conservation overlay and everything. But the 1 acre lots is by choice, so that the other 2 acres of what would be a 3 acre lot, minimum lot, can be unpreserved instead of platted as part of the lot. And there'll be over 200, right around 200 acres of this 360 put into conservation. One of the biggest things, and really the only slide I wanted to show, is just a couple of pictures of some houses that would be similar to the product and style that we foresee out here. In fact, I know the gentleman's neighbor, Davis Hooper actually lives another lot adjacent to this property in Chapel Heights. Obviously, we have a great relationship.
I'm sorry, but this is not appropriate. You're not here to sell homes. What we're trying to do is talk about the conservation district. So if we can get back to the point, I think it'd be more appropriate.
Yeah, and so ultimately, the conservation overlay allows us to come in and do less density. It's really the same density if you did 3 acre lots, just on 1/3 of the property, and that's why we do it. Happy to answer questions.
Are you aware that the conservation overlay does not fit the conservation overlay designations?
Yeah, we understand the technicalities that, like I said, this is not a preliminary plat phase, so these are not the final plat lines, and we know that we need to tweak some of that stuff after talking with staff and then making us aware of that, and we're happy to do that. And of course, that, as y'all know, we'll come back to you at that during the platting phase. Yes. But we're confident we can work through that with the 360 acres.
Are you, let me ask you about the connection, because if you'll go back to the map, yes, that one. It looks like to me you're landlocked, except for using Terra Lane or Chapel Heights, unless you can get out to Lee Road 27. Can you get out to Lee Road 27?
No, ma'am.
And so what was the plan for construction? Where's construction
Yeah,
traffic coming
yeah.
in? Terra Lane and Chapel Heights?
Yes, sir. Use of one of those two right-of-ways. You know, and these are $1 million plus homes, so you're talking 8 to 12 units a year would be what we anticipate. So.
I'm asking about the roads, not the homes at this time. So you planned on using the public streets that are there to get to that 300 and something acres, and no other way to get in.
Even after homes are built? Even after homes are built there, you would have people, the new residents go through Terra Lane and Chapel Heights Drive to get out?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Can you address some of the concerns that people raised about the soil, erosion, septic tanks, all that?
Sure, absolutely. They are correct that it's a different type of soil in that side of town. And so, but when the homes are built, each lot is designed and engineered specifically for the soil on that lot. You know, and that will comply with all state regulations on every home.
Any other questions? Okay.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to ask staff some questions, and that is about whether this is approved or not approved. It doesn't matter. If they decide to construct on this, would they be allowed to go through Terra Lane and Chapel Heights Creek?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, those, those streets currently have right-of-way stubbed out to this property.
Okay.
So, you know, whenever they were platted, the intent was for connections to happen. This, this proposed development would trip the requirement to do a traffic study. So, if it was in the city and they did develop it with a similar number of lots they're showing, we would be looking at a traffic analysis.
Okay.
And as a result of that, could possibly be like, let's widen Terra Lane and Chapel Hill and all that kind of stuff?
There's always that kind of potential when a traffic analysis is done. Just depends on the capacity of the street, how many trips would be expected to go that way. And again, like they mentioned, there would be a preliminary plat phase. I mean, a preliminary plat done after this. So as they would address some of the other issues we've noted, it's likely that the configuration would change, because we made comments as well about, you know, even stubbing their streets out, I think to the south and the west. But you know, there's just other aspects that are going to be looked at. So,
Are there any plans in this area for, you know, you have a road, there's a roads plan that's out there. I mean, right now, the only access is Terra and Chapel Heights. But over time, as this area starts to grow some, there is a possibility for other access points. But I mean, this is so far out
So that's part of the reason this isn't an optimal boundary, so we're not even considering that, so that's,
Not even looking at it, yeah.
So right now, the answer is you have two access points and that's it.
Whether it's, my next question is whether it's annexed into the city or not, we'll still, if they desire to still develop it, the plat would come before us. Let me ask you about the water. Is there water provided out in that area?
So the water board does not provide water to this area, but I believe it's Beauregard that provides
Beauregard.
that. And any of the development that is annexed into the city will have to meet the city fire code. So I can't really speak to what Beauregard can offer as far as volumes go, but
Right.
any of the development would have to meet the city fire code.
All right, and let's talk about septic. Because I do know about septic myself. And the state of Alabama, the health department is what approves the septic, not us. And how small of a lot can you have if public water is available for the state of Alabama to approve it?
So I guess that for other reasons we're intimately familiar with this in the past months, but it's right around like 15,000 square feet. So it's pretty small. It's really just kind of up to the quality of the system that you get engineered. And our subdivision regs mandate 1 acre. But if there's public water available, the minimum does drop down to 15,000 square foot lot.
So our subdivision regulations do set the minimum at 1 acre. That is outside of the rural zone or a conservation overlay district. Is that's
Yep.
correct?
Right.
Yeah, that's
Right.
correct. Yeah, and so I guess kind of part of this, just kind of from an analysis standpoint and just kind of a review standpoint. So zoning actions don't trigger that level of scrutiny on the staff side. Preliminary plats do. And so especially a preliminary plat like this, and it's one of the things that we've started to encounter a lot more just kind of recently, where folks are kind of pushing out to the periphery and people are trying to do bigger subdivisions kind of out on the periphery, and where there are issues, or I guess where not issues per se, but where the city doesn't provide water and these other rural water services, there are a lot more questions that we then have to answer that then y'all are kind of tasked with verifying just kind of on the staff side. So we have had issues in the past with other places in proximity to Sand Hill Road being able to meet fire suppression. We've had other projects that have come to us in pre-app and have decided not to move forward because of lack of water in other rural parts of town. But from a situation about sewer, leaching, all these other things, those things would be examined by staff, just kind of at the preliminary plat level, and those would be comments, like I said, and in this situation where there isn't a master development plan, there's no extension of a development agreement for infrastructure, things like that. Those are things where there would be a significant amount of scrutiny on those before y'all even saw the plat. Kind of deal. And so from the pre-app level, from the pre-app step of the process to them making the submission, there would be a lot of hurdles, I think, for someone to hit to be able to realize a preliminary plat that met all of the standards. So like I said, that's because a lot of those things are baked into other bigger developments with a development agreement that it's all taken care of. In a situation like this, where it's outside the city limits, outside the optimal boundary, those things need to be answered by the preliminary plat. And so those are situations where on the staff side, we'd have a lot more of those answers for you, where we'd speak to, well, we're not confident in the fire suppression and all that. But like I said, the zoning request action does not trigger that review from staff.
Any more questions from the commission?
And I guess I did forget to mention. So I know it is one of the things that I know property owners and neighborhoods routinely come out and stress about. I think the last meeting, people talked about construction traffic not being used in their road in the Solomere neighborhood. One of the things staff does stress, this is kind of that duality of connectivity. And so that is one of the reasons. It's not that this was stubbed out in accident. It is not that this was maliciously stubbed out. It was stubbed out with intent that it would be hard for someone to realize to buy an easement, build a road, through somebody's property to get to Society Hill Road. Chapel Heights Road and Terra Lane, if there were roads on the other side of them, would not make it arterial or collector. But this is the other part of connectivity of allowing. And if someone were gonna subdivide, I mean, they'd run into the construction manual standards about cul-de-sacs and having it stub out in other places. So I guess I did want to speak to that. I know it's one of the topics that people come and talk about a lot, about trying to refuse connectivity and pushing for cul-de-sacs on that. But as you guys see on the Chapel Hill one that's stubbed out to the east there in the middle of Chapel Heights Drive, the connectivity is something that we do mandate on the staff side, and it's not by accident.
Okay.
So,
Any more questions? Okay, we have before you, I need a motion for the pre-zoning of Odom Creek Estates.
I'll move to approve case RZ 2025-027, Odom Creek Estates pre-zoning.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Do a roll call.
Yeah, let's roll call.
Dana Camp,
No.
Bill Chancellor,
No.
Jennifer Lover,
No.
Vanessa Eccles, no. Jennifer Stevens,
No.
Oscar Mosley,
No.
Walker Davis.
No.
It failed.
all right, Odom Creek Estates annexation. So this is the annexation side of it. So there's no public hearing associated with this. It's kind of similar point, just kind of like I said, this is outside of the optimal boundary. So if you want to go to the optimal boundary map, yep. So outside the optimal boundary, and I guess kind of like I said, that doesn't prohibit development of it. It just, if there was a preliminary plat, it would still come to this board. I think there are just some comments in the annexation staff report. As you guys see, just the distance from services, from emergency response time to animal control to the, I guess, for people out there, I imagine who live on 3+ acres, may not be that relevant that they don't live within walking distance or something to a park. But like I said, just the closest park, Lake Wilmore, really far away. And then just kind of the nuance of the Auburn City Schools. Like I said, they don't provide information on a case-by-case basis, but pretty much they have a standing opinion of being opposed to extensions outside the optimal boundary, pretty much. So if you guys have any questions about it, happy to talk about it. But I think kind of from a annexation side, just kind of like some of the people have mentioned, and just kind of like the staff report references, if it is outside the optimal boundary, it should not be annexed. And like I said, there is an emphasis of, and I think very thematic of just kind of where we are in the development of Auburn, of really getting, really kind of emphasizing growing without having to grow spaciously, really kind of focusing on infill development.
So I think we have a little bit of a quandary here from this standpoint. If it stays in the county, they can develop roughly 360 lots, 1 acre lots.
Yep.
Yeah.
If we annex it into the city, the minimum lot size is 3 acres.
Yep.
So that is a third less lots and homes that you could put in there.
Yes, and I guess
That's making me kind of go, okay, so what's the least lesser of the two evils?
yeah, and so I would say on that side, I mean, however many homes ended up back there, whether they were platted single family lots or it was a group development and they realized different density back there. The real strain isn't necessarily about how many homes it could be, because it's about delivering services to it. And so there's a new road that the city would have, there's an extension of the road that the city would have to maintain. Like I said, the school system would have to send buses out there. There's the trash that needs to be picked up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's really what's looking at the optimal boundary. That's what the optimal boundary is telling people, of that this is really the far reaches that it really makes sense for us to provide services. And I know it's kind of contrary to kind of popular belief and what a lot of people think, but single-family housing, detached single-family housing especially, is much more of a drain on city services than they are on from just like a raw monetary standpoint. If you're looking at it like an economic standpoint.
Did you say this is in our police jurisdiction?
Yes, it is in the police jurisdiction, and it is in the planning
Kind of
jurisdiction.
development that would have to come back to us as terms of subdivision.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this case, okay.
Yes, and they would have to meet our subdivision regulations.
Yeah, and so I guess kind of the other part of just kind of thinking through what density could actually be realized. That's an answer that we would then get to, right at the preliminary plat level. And so, like I said, there have been other plats in this area that have run into problems with water. There have been other pre-apps that have not made it to submission because of issues with water. Those are things that could be realized. And so, from a density standpoint, like I said, there is no cap on that if they were just to go group development, something in the county. If they chose to subdivide and do fee simple lots, it's one house, 1 acre kind of deal. But there are real limitations that aren't necessarily the density. And so I would say that that's almost a false number to really kind of focus on, because from a technical standpoint, I don't think it could be realized from some of the issues that some people have raised today. And like I said, from the trend of what the utilities have been able to bear in some of these areas in town.
So you mentioned like the public safety aspect. You have police and fire, but the issue is the response time, correct?
Yeah, so really just kind of in some of these areas, that's the main thing. So it's response time, but also it's coupled with fire suppression. And so when you don't have the water pressure, what happens is if there is a fire, let's say like the house is on fire and it takes them longer to get out there, your house may burn down before they can reach you, or they may run out of water before they successfully put your fire out. And so those are some of the bigger things to consider when you start to see some of the bigger, the more rural preliminary plats kind of out on the periphery of town. So from a public safety standpoint, I think we talked about this in the past, but when there's the comment from fire that this may affect fire insurance rates, what they are saying is that we cannot verify that we have enough water or proximity to enough water in time to put your house out if it catches on fire. That is what that means.
And so that's also could be a life and death situation.
Yeah, correct. And so like we've kind of talked about in different areas, there's a lot of provisions in the subdivision regs, like I said, that would get triggered in the instance of a preliminary plat. But this is really just an annexation. But yeah, that is a health, safety, and welfare thing that y'all are empowered under the subdivision regs to make a decision to deny things under.
Any more questions, comments?
I'll move to approve AX 2025-019, Odom Creek annexation.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve Odom Creek annexation. Let's do a roll call.
Dana Camp,
No.
Bill Chancellor,
No?
Jennifer Lover,
No.
Vanessa Eccles, no. Jennifer Stevens,
No.
Oscar Mosley,
No.
Walker Davis,
No.
failed.
Can we take a break for about 5 minutes?
Yeah. So yeah, if you just want a motion to recess.
Motion to recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We'll recess.
That is correct. These next two items are the preliminary plat and the final plat for the Will Beekner Parkway right-of-way. The property is located south of Richland Road. It's approximately 159 acres. The road has already been built. However, the portion within the parcel has not been dedicated. The road south of there has. So with the dedication of the road, lots on the west side, those are going to be the 3 lots that total about 27 acres. And then the remainder of the property, which is this area here, is about 123. And the property is going to be the future Richland Road Park. And that is it.
It's like Parks and Rec Park?
Correct.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yep.
Okay, has a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on the Will Beekner Parkway? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, have any questions?
Move to approve case PP 2025-034, Will Beekner Parkway right away.
Second.
I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next.
And this item, sorry, this is the final plat for the same subdivision, 3 lots for the dedication of Will Beekner Parkway.
Any questions?
Go ahead and move to approve the final plat, case FP 2025-035, Will Beekner Parkway, right away.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those approve?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry. All right, next is conditional use at 726 Harper Avenue.
All right, so yes, this is a conditional use request from JFT Properties. The applicant is requesting a conditional use approval for a performance residential development, which is a 3-unit, multiple-unit development. The property is located at 726 Harper Avenue and is located in the Corridor Redevelopment District East. So kind of looking at the prox map, you can see the property highlighted, the box. Per staff comment, this is of course north of North Dean Road and the East Glen intersection. There are ongoing talks about the kind of just alley behind this property with cross access and kind of just maintaining that, as well as there is existing access from the Walgreens, which is right at this property right here, to this property as well. So kind of just looking at the site plan right here, you have the multiple unit development with Harper Avenue right here. We do have 2 conditions for approval in the staff report. One condition is for the retaining walls that are on the site plan to not prevent any cross access for the alley behind, as well as a condition to maintain the already existing access for the Walgreens. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, this conditional use requires a public hearing. Anyone would like to come forward for the public hearing on Harper Avenue? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners have any questions?
I move to approve item CU 2025-064.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to approve
Sorry, does that have to be with
the Harper
conditions?
Avenue with conditions.
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah, with
Oh,
conditions.
okay.
We stated.
Move to approve item CU 2025-064 with conditions.
Second?
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next is conditional use for Mercer Circle.
All right, so this is a conditional use request for performance residential use for multiple unit development located at 732 Mercer Circle in the Corridor Redevelopment District East. The applicant is proposing to build an additional structure on the subject property for the purpose of an office or workspace. They previously sought a variance because this would technically be an accessory structure, but it's larger than the principal structure. So they got denied for the variance, and they opted to pursue a conditional use for a multiple unit development. It would be out of character for this neighborhood. However, it's not functioning as a multiple unit development, a traditional multiple unit development. I can answer any questions if you have them.
Yeah.
I assume.
All right, this requires a public hearing. Anyone that would like to speak can come forward to comment on 732 Mercer Circle. Please state your name and your address.
Yeah, Larry Stafford, 723 Mercer. I'm sorry, 732 Mercer Circle. Get where I live. So, originally there was a plan that y'all were gonna link Mercer Circle and Patricia, and so you took it from residential to mixed, I believe. And mixed allows in your 5-year plan that, well, we can have businesses in this area, which makes sense. So it's a transition place for you, is what you're thinking. I don't understand the process of how that would occur. In this case, we're putting in an office space that's going to be larger than the house, probably would accommodate 3 or 4 real estate agents or lawyers or somebody. But there's no discussion about parking in this place. Right now, we got some college girls on facing the Krogers, and if they have 4 or 5 friends come in, you can't get a garbage pickup that day. It'll close it down. So what I really don't understand is how you plan to turn this cul-de-sac into businesses without planning for it to be a business. Right now, you're thinking, well, we just put something there, and eventually people will move out. Well, I've got family that live there that don't want to move out. They're content to live in this cul-de-sac that used to be a residential area. A lot of rental there too. So, yes, I don't like the idea. I don't like the process. And sometimes you got to take 2 steps back when you don't get it right the first time. And that's what needs to happen here, in my opinion. It needs to be left as a residential area and rezoned like it used to be would be my preference. And that's what I submit to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign in, please. Thank you. Anyone else needs to speak on this item? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Leslie Edwards. This is my house. So we do not plan to turn it into a business. This is really I just want a garage, and my husband works from home, and he is taking up one of our bedrooms, so we want to just build up and put him an office up above it. I mean, that's really the only, I just really just want a garage in my backyard, and it was too big because my house is tiny. It's like 1,000 square feet, so I couldn't get it as an accessory building. So that's really was the point of this. Like, I'm not trying to turn it into a business. My grandmother lived here. We don't plan to move, so that is not the point of this. It's just a residential, personal property use.
Okay.
And we couldn't get it as an accessory building, so this is like Route 2. So it will have an office and a kitchen, but like it's not gonna be a business. So, and we can't accommodate the parking in our driveway that's next to it, because I think you do have to have like a couple additional parking places, but the driveway we extended when we moved in, so there's plenty of space there. Like, I agree with you about the.
Please talk to the.
I agree with you about the parking
Yeah.
on the street. It's
Please.
super annoying. So, like, we don't plan to park in the street. So, if you have any other questions.
No. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Sign in, please. Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public meeting.
I have a question.
I do too. Go ahead.
My question is, I guess I just don't recall the details of this particular zoning and what's allowable. commercial business.
CRDE. So CRDE is governed by Table 5.8. It is a corridor redevelopment district east. And so pretty intuitive. Corridor redevelopment was sought after and kind of contrived to redevelopment along these corridors. So the big ones are Glen, Opelika Road. You got this portion of Dean. There's corridor redevelopment west, which is Bragg. I mean, there's a lot of these big corridors that had a lot of curb cuts on them, single family houses, but had the traffic counts of commercial uses. And so corridor redevelopment east particularly was looked at of kind of how do we get some mixed use from Ross all the way down to Dean, for the big hard corner intersection that's there. And so mixed use with kind of a mix of vertical, horizontal uses. So there's on the north side of the road, there's a smattering of businesses. There's a business center over there that's kind of got the 2 stories, different real estate offices, law offices, scuba diving. There used to be a bike shop. He's retiring. And then on the south side, but the redevelopment has really matched a lot of townhomes. And so we're kind of getting an influx of townhomes there. But the intent was really just kind of corridor redevelopment. And MUDs are allowed. And I guess you can realize those bigger redevelopments through conditional uses. And so in a lot of the corridor redevelopment zones, like the urban one, urban west and urban east, the redevelopment was really sought after through bigger assemblages. And what that means is kind of putting the smaller parcels together that way we can do bigger projects, realize the density. They'll have a flat density of 10 dwelling units an acre kind of thing. But what it does allow is conditional uses for MUDs with a lot, if you can meet all the lot minimums and all the special development standards associated with it. This lot does. And so like she said, she went for a variance. BZA flatly was like, I think you can realize this another way, especially for the size you're trying to do. And so they encouraged her to apply. I guess they were just find another avenue. And from looking at it, CRDE does allow conditional approval of an MUD. And so this really wouldn't function as an MUD. And I guess kind of for the questions about parking, there's the parking that's in the structure because the first floor technically is the garage. That's 2 parking spaces. And then there's the parking spaces for a driveway like she mentioned. But her, like I said, her ambition is really to just kind of use this as additional storage. It's just from the size of it and throwing the kitchen and everything else in it, it's easier for her to realize the end goal of what she was trying to do instead of just put an accessory structure. And so kind of like we talked about in the BZA meeting, a lot of people in town live in primary and exclusive residential areas. CRD is not that. It is a mixed use zone that allows for these things through conditional uses. And the North Star of it was larger assemblages to put together these properties to then have these kind of denser developments along these corridors to kind of cut down on the curb cuts.
My question is, what if she sells this property? What can it be used for then?
Yes, same thing. So then someone, I guess, if someone wanted to rent out both of these, and they could, that's the use that's being approved. And I guess it's up to 5 in CRDE, and so that wouldn't be an issue from a zoning standpoint. And I guess kind of the real thing here, I guess,
Could they make it? They couldn't make it into a store.
Well, it'd have to be conditional use, though.
Yeah. And I guess kind of to realize some of the, and so to realize some of those bigger commercial and more intense uses, those would be assemblages. And I think that would almost kind of take care of itself from an access standpoint. But yeah, if they, for this to really kind of realize that bigger redevelopment, I think that would look like a developer going in, buying both cul-de-sacs and then going, I'm gonna go vertical with something.
Right.
So, and like I said, kind of like we've seen on Glen further down, where people have bought 2-3 homes and they put back about 8-9 townhomes.
My next question is, the way it's described is it's a garage on the bottom, a double garage on the bottom, an office and a kitchen, and I guess a bathroom.
Yeah.
So why is that a mud? I thought a mud was more than one unit.
Correct. And so the house is the first unit. And then what she's building is the second unit. And so for her, like I said, the issue was the accessory dwelling unit was too big and needed a variance. And so to get out of that was, I think she initially was like, I don't want to put a kitchen in it. And then I was like, well, this actually be easier if you put a kitchen in it. And she was like, cool, I'll put a kitchen in it. So that's how this went. Like I said, it was really just kind of the encouragement of the BZA of, there's another way for you to do this. You don't need a variance for this. Like I said, from a use standpoint, it's really just kind of functioning as her. It's the second. It's an office space for her husband.
I'm going to ask you this question.
Yeah.
And you know where I'm coming from. Why is this not oh, I know why. It's the size. Accessory dwelling.
That is correct. Yeah, it's the size of it, and so that's what she sought the variance for, because there's a 50% cap on accessory structures.
Dwellings, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so 30% cap on accessory dwelling units, 50% cap on accessory structures.
Yeah.
And so it was easier for her, like I said, to just build the MUD.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
Move to approve case CU 2025-065.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next, we have a waiver to minimum setbacks on Mercer.
All right, so this is a request for a waiver to 3 feet of the minimum rear setback, 15 feet in the corridor redevelopment district east. Table 5.8 dictates this, and that's shown right here. Currently, the unit is shown 12 feet from the rear property line, which would require the 3 feet of waiver.
So it's not going to 3 feet, it's 3 feet less than the 15.
Yes, 3 feet less than 15. So
it's 12 feet
from
Okay.
the property line.
Yeah.
I read it that way too. All right, can we see the prox map again? Okay. All right, this does not require a public hearing. It's for a waiver to the setback of 3 feet to 12 feet. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve case WZ 2025-008.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the waiver for 732 Mercer Circle. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, next is conditional use, North Donahue Drive.
So this is a request for conditional use approval for a commercial and entertainment use or a tattoo shop at 178 North Donahue Drive in the Urban Neighborhood West zoning district. The proposed use would be located within a unit in the building that houses the goalpost. So right there at the intersection of West Glen and North Donahue. The build-out of this use would not change the current use of the property in whole as a shopping center, and would be considered an appropriate retail use within the Urban Neighborhood West zoning district. Can answer any questions if you have them.
Anyone have any questions?
Yeah, I don't understand where this is located, because if you look at this map, it's located at the end of the building, it looks like.
Yeah.
If you look at the map, it looks like it's in the middle of the building, so where's the use?
This, I believe, the structure. I don't know why it's not. highlighted.
Yeah, so-
this
so-
right here is a multiple. It's either I think
Yeah,
it's a.
there's a restaurant on one end and the goalpost on the other.
Yeah,
side.
so it's kind of covered by the hash mark pretty much. If you look there's space in between them.
Yes.
Yeah, and so the depiction. So that's not one long building. There's space in between those.
Okay.
Yeah. And so pretty much it's that empty space, just kind of to the right of Insomnia.
So it is at the end.
Correct. Yeah. Those buildings are not connected.
That helps.
Okay. Thank you. All right, this requires a public hearing for a tattoo shop at 178 North Donahue. Does anyone like to speak?
Thank you. My name's Jeff Roberts, and I own the house at 156 North Donahue, which is directly beside the goalpost quick shop.
So
And
it's right directly next to this
it's
use.
directly next to it.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm directly next. I want to preface this by saying I don't have any feeling at all toward anybody with tattoo. My family members have them. I have my best friends have them. I have nothing against anybody having a tattoo. The only thing that I have an issue with is having a tattoo shop right next door to my house. And, you know, I have, I live in this house about half the year, and I live at a house in Gadsden about half the year. And I own a strip mall in Boaz, Alabama, and I've had to negotiate contracts with some national entities like Edward Jones Financial and with Allstate. And when you have a national company, you don't get to write their lease, they write your lease. And in each of their leases, the one thing they state in their lease is that I cannot lease one of my units to a tattoo shop. There's a reason that they put that in my lease. There's a reason that the city of Auburn sent me a letter to come here tonight. And there's a reason I drove 2.5 hours down here to meet with y'all. You know, my house is so close to where this is proposed that when I got to Auburn today, I got a tape measure out. And I measured from the edge of the tattoo parlor to my guest bedroom window, and it's 8.5 feet. That's closer than me to y'all. I have a 2.5-year-old granddaughter, and that's where she sleeps when we come down here. I don't know if any of you would be comfortable with your 2.5-year-old granddaughter sleeping 8 feet from a tattoo parlor. I'm not comfortable. If you are, I would expect it to pass. But if you wouldn't be like me, I would expect it not to pass. And there's also an issue of property value. 8 feet from a tattoo parlor is going to bring down my property value. So I ask for your consideration into not allowing this use of that building for those reasons that I've stated. And I thank you for the consideration.
Thank you. Don't forget to sign in. Anyone else would like to speak on this item? Seeing no one, I'll close the public comments.
I think you should say that.
Any questions, Commissioner?
If you look on Google Maps, on the street view, the proximity is crazy, how close. I mean, Walker has it pulled up, and it's crazy how close it is.
Yeah, what has been on that? Is anything occupied it recently?
Yeah, what was in there before?
Oh yeah, I would not know. Yeah, yeah. I guess is the applicant here? Yeah.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Yeah.
Come forward, please.
Yeah. So I guess just either not. I'd say more building owner, not necessarily the person who's trying to run a tattoo shop, but.
Yeah. State your name and your address, please, sir.
My name is Jay Desai, and my address is 825 Whittington Street, Auburn, Alabama. So I bought this property before 1 year ago, and Insomnia restaurant, they used to use this space for the storage. So now their lease, Insomnia, the lease is, I renew their lease, but they don't want to keep that shop. They just want to keep, there is a 2 different shop. So they want to keep only one shop. So there is a very small shop around 800 square feet, and I want to give this place to a tenant, and he is interested to open a tattoo place, and that's the thing. If you guys have any questions, I can give the answers.
Any questions? Thank you. Sign in, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'll say on the setback. So the setbacks east of North Donahue in urban neighborhood west are mandated to be that tight. So this is one of the few places in town where there are setback maximums, where you can only be back 10 feet. And so that's side rear. I guess the front's not spoken about, but I think it's same thing. But what we're talking about is a side setback. Side setback can't be more than 10 feet in urban neighborhood west, east of North Donahue. And that's what this is, even though this is on North Donahue. And so that was my first thought when he mentioned. I just wanted to verify that. But yeah, that is in the table, and that is not uncommon for urban living in downtown.
Can I ask about any regulations for tattoo parlors that the city may have or that the state has?
I feel like last time that this came up on other ones, I think the city attorney spoke to it about state regulations, but we do not have special development standards for tattoo parlors. I think, like I said, those normally go in more high intensity areas, kind of like our urban neighborhood west, especially east of Donahue, and then kind of at our commercial nodes, kind of the strip malls kind of thing, shopping centers kind of deal. That's where they would exist.
Does the city mandate hours of operations for businesses like tattoo parlors? Like, are they allowed to be open till?
I guess they could be, because Insomnia is open till midnight.
Okay, so we already have Insomnia in the same building.
Yep.
Right next
And Insomnia is busy at night.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? All right, then, I need a motion for the conditional use at 178 North Donahue, Dr. Tattoo.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve case CU 2025-066.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
Dana Camp,
No.
Bill Chancellor,
Yes.
Jennifer Lover,
No.
Vanessa Eccles,
Yes.
Jennifer Stevens,
Yes.
Oscar Mosley,
Yes.
Walker Davis.
No.
4-3.
4-3.
Okay, this passes. This will go to the city council.
Yep.
When?
Oh, yeah, I guess, yeah, 16th, yeah, so next week.
Next week, okay. December 16th, it will be at the city council.
Good evening. This is a request for a recommendation to City Council for conditional use approval for a performance residential development, a 10-unit, multiple unit development located at 538 Richland Road. It is in the redevelopment district and is part of the Judd Avenue mixed-use development. The subject property is approximately 1 acre in size, and the plan for the site also includes approximately 4,700 square feet of commercial space. And both you and the city council, or you recommended approval, the city council approved various commercial and entertainment uses for the site last October. Staff has no concerns with the request, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, this is a conditional use and it requires a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on the Judd Avenue mixed use phase 2?
Lee Tharp, cadre engineering for the applicant. I stuck it out this long. I just wanted to go ahead and get it on the record. But we're here as well as another representative of the applicant if you got any specific questions about the development. Thank you.
Anybody else that would like to speak during public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, have any questions? Then I need a motion.
Motion to approve CU 2025-067, Judd Avenue Phase 2.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
All right. The last case tonight is a recommendation to City Council for conditional use approval for the expansion of an existing industrial use at 2410 West Tech Lane in the Industrial Zoning District. The applicant wishes to expand the existing facility to include approximately 39,000 square feet of building space. This will increase the existing space to approximately 118,000 square feet, and staff has no concerns with the request.
Okay, this conditional use requires a public hearing. If anyone would like to speak, please come forward. Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners, have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the expansion is kind of in the middle, not in the middle of that green space, but it's kind of where that wedge is in the building. That's where it's actually located.
Move to approve case CU 2025-068 2A USA expansion.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Any other business?
Update as far as the moratorium stuff, we are working together to put together a contract with a consultant, kind of move forward to kind of help us rewrite the zoning ordinance. So that's starting to take shape. Hope to get that in front of council pretty soon. So.
All right. Anyone else have any comments? Staff?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we are adjourned.